everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We have an incredible news story to share. So, let's dive right in. My name is Daniel, and if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you that my marriage was strong. I truly believed in us, convinced that we had built something solid. For the past few years, my main focus had been on securing our future. My business was finally thriving, and I was in the middle of expanding into new cities. That required a lot of travel, sometimes for days, other times for weeks. But I did it for us. I thought all the effort was worthwhile. But life has a cruel way of blindsiding you just when you think you have it all figured out. The day my world crumbled, the truth found me on its own, and when it did, it struck harder than I ever imagined possible. I was away on a business trip, and everything was going smoothly. Meetings were productive. Deals were being closed, and I was already looking forward to heading home to spend time with my beautiful wife. I was exhausted but satisfied, knowing that every long hour I dedicated to my work was securing a better future for us. Then, that afternoon, my phone rang. It was Mark, a longtime friend, but something about his voice was off, hesitant, uneasy. "Daniel, listen, man. I wasn't sure if I should even call you, but I can't keep this to myself," he said, his voice filled with tension. "I just saw Sophia coming out of a hotel with another man." For a few moments, I said nothing. My mind refused to process what I had just heard. Maybe I misinterpreted his words. Maybe there was some mistake. But Mark wasn't the kind of person to joke about something like this. "I took photos, Daniel," he continued. "I wasn't sure if I should, but I had a bad feeling. I'll send them to you now." A second later, my phone buzzed. My hands felt like lead as I opened the message. And there she was, Sophia, my wife, stepping out of a hotel lobby. She wasn't alone. A man was walking beside her. Still, I didn't react. I didn't call her. I didn't yell. I simply stood there, staring at the images on my screen. The truth was staring right back at me, but a part of me still wanted to believe there was another explanation. "You there, Danny?" Mark's voice brought me back to reality. "Yeah, I'm here," I replied, forcing myself to sound composed. "Man, I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but you needed to know." I nodded to myself, even though he couldn't see me. I wasn't angry at Mark. If anything, I appreciated his honesty. He didn't owe me this, yet he did it anyway. And deep down, I knew he was right. I needed to know. But now that I did, what was I supposed to do with it? I returned home earlier than planned. No calls, no texts, just walked through the front door. Sophia was in the kitchen, humming softly while chopping vegetables. When she turned and saw me, she smiled. "How was your trip?" she asked, her voice light and cheerful. I forced myself to remain calm, nodding as if everything was normal, responding casually. I watched her move around the kitchen, listening to her talk, waiting for the right moment. Then, when she least expected it, I said it. "Unlock your phone." The room fell silent. The air grew thick, heavy with unspoken tension. Her smile wavered, but she recovered quickly, letting out a small laugh. "What? Why?" she asked, trying to sound playful. But I saw the way her fingers twitched. I didn't answer. I just stared at her, waiting. She shook her head. "Daniel, come on. This is ridiculous. Unlock it." My voice remained calm and steady, no anger, just a firm demand. She crossed her arms, forcing out another nervous chuckle. "You don't trust me?" After everything, I didn't argue. Instead, I reached over, grabbed her phone, and held it up between us. The color drained from her face. "Unlock it now," I said, my tone unwavering, "or I walk out that door and never look back." For a moment, she didn't move. She just stared at me, searching for an escape, but there was none. We both knew it. Her hands trembled as she took the phone from me, her fingers hovering over the screen. Then, finally, she gave in. The lock screen disappeared. The first thing I saw was a series of unread messages, some from a saved contact, others from an unknown number. I opened one, then another, then another. It was all there, explicit texts, photos, videos, things I never imagined my wife sending to another man. What shattered me the most was recognizing some of the photos. My wife had sent me similar ones before, intimate reminders of what we shared. And yet, here they were, sent to someone else. As I scrolled further, I found hotel reservations, late-night conversations, and plans to meet while I was away working. The messages even talked about me, how I was always too preoccupied, too caught up in my business to notice anything. She had believed she could do whatever she wanted because I trusted her too much. The words blurred for a moment, but I kept going. I needed to see everything, to fully understand who she had become when I wasn't looking. Across the room, Sophia collapsed onto the couch, sobbing, her hands covering her tear-streaked face, as if the weight of her guilt had suddenly become unbearable. "I'm sorry. I was lonely. You're never home, Daniel. I just... Her words came out between gasping sobs. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I love you. Please, let me explain." But I didn't react the way she expected. Without a word, I took screenshots and transferred everything to myself. Then, just as calmly as I had asked her to unlock her phone, I set it back on the table. I met her tear-filled gaze, my voice colder than I had ever heard it. "I don't need your excuses." Then I stood up, walked past her trembling frame, entered our bedroom, and began packing the things I had left behind from my last trip. My clothes, my documents, everything that mattered, everything I needed to walk out that door and never look back. I moved into a temporary apartment, blocked her number, and severed all contact. If she had anything to say, she could say it through my lawyer. I called my attorney immediately to begin the divorce process. That was the difference between us. She acted on impulse, driven by selfishness and recklessness. I acted with clarity and purpose. Everything went through legal channels. I refused to sit across from her in a meeting, pretending there was anything left to discuss. My lawyer made it clear, no mediation, no emotional manipulation, no unnecessary back and forth. Just a clean break. For the first time in months, I could breathe. The pain didn't vanish overnight. I didn't wake up the next morning suddenly free from everything I had lost. But I had a choice, wallow in misery or turn it into something useful. I chose the latter. I threw myself into my business with relentless focus. The expansion I had planned, I made it happen and fast. I didn't just move cities. I rebuilt my entire life. Day by day, the weight of what had happened grew lighter. I wasn't healing because of time. I was healing because I chose to. Months passed, and one morning, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back at me. Stronger, wiser, more successful. By then, the divorce was nearly finalized. It had dragged on because she wanted more than I was willing to give. But the best part? I felt nothing for her anymore. No anger, no sadness, no love, just indifference. And indifference, my friends, is the best revenge of all. After months of silence, rebuilding my life in a new city, and finally learning to breathe without betrayal suffocating me, she came back. It was late, well past dinner. I had just wrapped up work, already looking forward to a hot shower and some sleep when I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but something in me said to check. So I opened the door, and there she was. Sophia stood in the dim porch light, her eyes red and swollen, tear tracks marking her cheeks. But that wasn't what stunned me. It was her stomach, round, heavy, pregnant. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. I just stood there, my mind blank, my body frozen in place. And then she completely fell apart. Through choked sobs and hiccups, she confessed that she had made a terrible mistake. She had spent countless nights crying herself to sleep, tormented by guilt, longing for me, wishing she could undo everything. She swore she had never stopped loving me, that loneliness had consumed her, clouded her judgment, and led her to make reckless decisions. And then came the final blow. "Daniel, this is your baby." She said it like a lifeline, as if those words alone could pull me back into her arms. She begged for another chance. She wanted us to be a family again, swearing that this time she would be loyal, that she had changed. I stood there, watching, listening. For a fleeting moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then reality hit me. She wasn't here because of love. She wasn't here out of true remorse. She was here because she needed something. I let her finish, allowing every apology, every plea, every carefully chosen word meant to tug at my emotions spill from her lips. When she finally stopped, her tear-filled eyes searching my face for hope, I gave a small nod and said, "All right, let's get a DNA test." The second those words left my mouth, everything changed. Her expression shifted. The tears stopped. Panic flickered across her face. "What?" She let out a nervous laugh, shaking her head. "Daniel, how could you even ask that? You think I'd lie about something like this?" I didn't respond. I simply held her gaze, waiting. She kept talking, accusing me of cruelty, insisting I was punishing her for the past. She demanded trust, reminding me that I had always believed in her before. She claimed that asking for a test was an insult, proof that I had never really loved her. And right then and there, I saw through her completely. If she had nothing to hide, she wouldn't be this scared. If she was absolutely certain this child was mine, she would have agreed without hesitation. But she didn't. She fought it. I exhaled slowly, stepped back, and placed a hand on the door. "If you won't take the test," I said, my voice unwavering, "then I have nothing more to say to you." Without another word, I shut the door in her face. I had thought I'd seen the worst of Sophia's deception, but I was wrong. Months passed after I sent her away, making it clear that I wanted no part of her or this so-called pregnancy. And then out of nowhere, I was served with a lawsuit. She was taking me to court, accusing me of abandoning my child, the same child she had refused to prove was mine. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sophia played her role to perfection. She painted herself as the ultimate victim, telling the court how I had heartlessly walked away when she needed me most, how I had refused to take responsibility, leaving her to struggle alone. It was a performance worthy of an award. She wept, sniffled, and played the part of the devastated woman betrayed by the man she loved. To anyone who didn't know better, she looked like someone who had been wronged, a woman who had given her heart and been abandoned. But there was one problem. She was lying. What she didn't realize was that I was no longer the naive man she once manipulated. I had the financial means, the resources, and most importantly, the determination to fight back. So, I did what any man in my position would do. I hired the best attorneys available. These weren't just any lawyers. They were elite professionals who had built their reputations dismantling deceptive spouses in court. To them, Sophia was just another case to conquer. The trial was relentless. My legal team wasted no time dismantling her claims. They unearthed every piece of evidence: her infidelity, her refusal to take a DNA test, and her blatant attempts at extortion. They exposed how she had twisted the legal system, carefully crafting a false narrative to portray herself as the victim, when in reality, she was the one who had shattered our marriage. Every falsehood she uttered was countered with indisputable proof. Every theatrical display was met with cold, hard facts. By the time my lawyers were done, there was no doubt left about who Sophia truly was. The courtroom that had once murmured in sympathy for the abandoned pregnant woman now whispered about her deception. She had no defense, no justification for her actions. She had entered court expecting to ruin me, but instead, she had only sealed her own downfall. The judge didn't just rule in my favor. He went further. A cease and desist order was issued against her, forbidding any future contact. She had not only lost, but had done so publicly, with no hope of redemption. As I walked out of the courthouse, I reflected on it all. I once pitied her when she showed up at my doorstep, pleading for another chance. But after the lies, the manipulation, and the audacity to take me to court over a child she refused to prove was mine, I felt nothing but relief that I never let her back in. In the end, this experience taught me one vital lesson. Never let guilt or manipulation make you question your worth. When someone shows you their true nature, believe them. I had ignored the warning signs, trusted blindly, and paid the price. But when I finally walked away, I never looked back, and that was the best decision I ever made. If you ever find yourself in a situation where someone is trying to guilt-trip you, manipulate you, or shift the blame for their own mistakes onto you, stand firm. Protect yourself. Because some people don't return out of love. They come back out of desperation. And if you let them in again, they will destroy you all over. But what do you guys think? If you were in my position, would you have handled things the same way? Or do you believe she deserved another chance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you've made it this far, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to hear my story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. It really helps support the channel and keeps the stories coming. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.